It should be recording now, but I'll give it a couple seconds. I confirm that it's showing up on YouTube, and it is gone. So you are set. I confirm that it's showing up on YouTube.
Okay, so I can begin.
Yes.
Okay, super. Well, thanks for your patience, everybody, and good morning, Edgemont. Today is Wednesday, June 10th, 2020, and soon we'll be hearing the testimony of survivor Miss Celia Kener. She's here on the call live with us, and that's what you'll see streaming to YouTube. We're so lucky to have her here today. And for the 8th graders who are watching the live stream, just a reminder to open a browser tab so you can fill out the Google form. It's our way to know that you were here with us today, and also an opportunity to ask Ms. Kener some questions at the end of her presentation. So let's get started. Ms. Kener, it's a privilege to have you with us. Thank you for being here.
Of course. So am I seeing any of the students, or I am not?
Right now,
no, am I only seeing the teachers now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, good morning to everybody. I am in hot Florida, and you are probably in Pleasant or Scarsdale or within that area. So, I need to ask you at the moment, at this difficult time that we're all living through, would you think it just being, away from normal daily activities, your thoughts are triggered by certain things, like walking down the street and people not knowing you, or well, what am I? Am I presenting some sort of danger? Or in the past weeks rather, being, shut in your home and told not to go out, lest I be exposed. But that brings me back to my memories of when the war started. So, I was born in Poland. I was an only child. I spoke Polish fluently, and probably that was the only language I spoke, although I am Jewish. Um, I played with friends, and I was about to start school that fall, but I was part of a ballet class, and we were going to have a ballet recital. And I was extremely excited. And I shared that with my friends. Well, the day of the recital arrived, and I had a beautiful costume. Um, and I was just so thrilled. But the day of the recital is when the Russian army invaded. We were occupied by, at that time, um, with Russians, and it's the German army that invaded on that day. And my ballet recital was canceled. My father was drafted to the Russian army, and I was totally distraught. Firstly, because my dad was gone, mom was crying, and after a while or a day or whatever, I did go out to play with my friends to sort of soothe me and calm me. And when I did walk out, is that they avoided me. They pulled away from me. They pointed at me. I couldn't understand, what had I done wrong? Did I smell? Did I do anything? But they would have nothing to do with me. Being pointed at in the backyard of the house where we played daily, being pointed at meant being collected by German soldiers or even Polish people or Ukrainian who were the citizens and the people who lived there. They now worked for the Germans. So being pointed at meant that I was different. What was different about me from, from just 2 days ago? Did I grow horns? Did I smell? But being pointed at meant being called onto a truck which was in front of the house. And on this truck, as I was let out, it hauled me up on the truck. And I'm asking, what happened? What did I do? Is there something, did I grow horns or something? Well, it appeared that the children, my friends, or who I thought were my friends, were told the Jews are not to be part of the population, not to play with them, not to go near them. Of course, being as young as I was, I didn't quite understand. But as I'm being pushed up onto the truck, I held on to the leg of the fellow who was arming the truck and said to him in Polish, whether he understood, I did not know what language he spoke, but crying and begging him and asking, do you have children of your own? And are they as guilty or as, whatever it is that they are as I am? What am I guilty of? I don't know. This is who I am. And how would you feel if your child was on this truck? Yes, he spoke Polish, so I presumed that he was a Pole now working for the Germans. And what I saw before even, you know, looking at him was children behind a chain. Some were hysterical crying, some were vomiting out of fear. And I am begging and appealing to him. And he grabbed me by my long blonde braids and threw me off the truck and said to me clearly, I am letting you go, but you dare not come back to this area during the daylight hours. Run around, do not return until dark, because you will be pointed out again and you will be back on a truck like this and you will not survive. Well, I did as I was told. I didn't stop to reason or understand, but the time I came back at night, my mother was already mourning my death, because being on this truck, no one came back. What they did with these children, I don't know. If they were old enough to work, perhaps they lived. If they were not, well, if a kid is sick and they can't do anything, what do you need kids for? They need to eat, they need to be fed, they need to be watched. We don't need them. I didn't understand any of this. What I wanted and understood was only to live. Well, now I'm with my mom. She is so sad and crying because life changed. Her husband, my father, is gone. And it wasn't long afterwards that we had to leave our home, our belongings, just take the few little things we could. And my mother and an aunt, uncle, and two cousins, a boy and a girl, a little older than I, were forced to leave our homes and all our possessions, and we were forced to go into the ghetto. I went along. Yes, I did get a little extra attention from my family because I was the youngest, and we came into the ghetto and were assigned in, in a very crowded, sort of like a mess hall with beds. I couldn't follow or put together why would a family live like this, but I managed. I didn't really act up because I was a pretty good kid. Anyway, as time went along, I would walk out in the street and saw other kids walking around. With time, we got to know each other and we played. And then, as time went along, food became scarcer. Um, there were frequent, attacks by the Germans where they would just go around and look for hidden Jews and take them away. We did not know the destinations, and those who were left behind were now suffering of illness and hunger. But I'm still with my family, and my cousins, and they pamper me as much as they can. And it wasn't much long after that my mom, um, my young mother, who was particularly charming and pretty, was forced against her will to go to be drafted to a work camp outside of the ghetto. Well, mom explained that she hopefully will be coming back and to be good. And I listened, yet I cried because now daddy was gone and now mommy is gone. But my family, my uncle, aunt, and my two cousins stepped in and they tried very hard to explain and pamper me. And I needed to live. That was my only goal. I compare it today to like, if you see a cockroach or an ant crawling on the floor, your first instinct is to step on it, right? So you stepped on it, you think you got it, but whether it's partially injured, it still keeps running. That was I. No matter what happened, I am going to live. So I stayed on with my family. Yes, we were hungry. Yes, we saw, and I saw terrible things outside in the streets, what was going on. What I couldn't understand particularly why was there were loudspeakers throughout the ghetto, around the perimeter of the ghetto. And the loudspeakers were beating loud march music. My parents loved dancing. So there was music in my home before coming into the ghetto. But now, with this march music in my young mind, how would they have people with their heads shaven, on the foreheads, the Star of David scratched out and blood oozing? They're in a circle and they're made to dance. I couldn't understand that. Why would people be dancing when things around them were so sad and difficult, where they were emaciated, skinny, because food was so sparse? Why is it not a regular beat to music? When I complained and asked, my family, my uncle and aunt and cousins tried to soothe me, and they explained that this is a way of the Germans showing us that we still have to live and enjoy. And I made peace as much as I could. I played with kids, and in front of me, some of them would just lie down and not get up again because I thought they were sleeping or resting, but they were dead of hunger or disease. When I mentioned and spoke about it to my aunt and uncle, as best as they could, they soothed me. And now, somehow, within the ghetto, word got around that the Germans were going to go on killing sprees, meaning just going and sorting out the people in the ghetto who were not strong, who were not able to work, who, what do you need them for? If you're sickly or weak or emaciated and just skeletal, those were taken away. Those who were strong and capable that could be put to work, they were taken away. So within the ghetto, when they knew that these, raids were coming around, and they did know somehow, the people within the ghetto, between each other, they would find places of hiding during these, these times when the Germans would go on these killing sprees. So if you lived someplace and you had a basement, they would dig beneath the floor of the basement and make a cellar and allow people in to hide while those, acts of just collecting Jews would come around. If the Germans didn't find you, and that particular, act of just collecting people was over, then you would come out again and continue the difficult life that it was, but you're still living. That would be if they had a basement. If you didn't have a basement, it could have been perhaps an attic or or anywhere that you could hide people, and a barter system, meaning in order to be allowed in to hide during these, weekly or bi-weekly, you know, uh, these tragedies that they did, it would be a barter system. So if you had extra food, then you would give it to the people who provided the hiding space. If you had a warm coat or warm boots, you would give them that. If you had money or perhaps, hidden jewelry. So it was, as I said, a barter system. My aunt and uncle and two older cousins would find out about these places. My mom is not around, and I am included in their plans. So often we would go, or whenever these, times would come around, and they would bring me with them. Sometimes I was allowed in, and sometimes not. And you can understand why, even if you offered money and compensation for allowing you in, they wouldn't allow a youngster like myself. So one of the times, my family, my uncle and aunt and cousins would go to these places because they knew that this, um, like a roundup was coming around, and they brought me with them. And the people who offered this place of hiding permitted them in, but they wouldn't allow me. Think about it. Why would they let the four members of my family in, but not a young girl? Firstly, these places of hiding could sometimes last, 24 hours, 48 hours. There would be obviously no light, no food, no bathroom. And what would a youngster do? Obviously, a youngster would cry. Well, when the Germans come around looking for hidden Jews, and they hear a child's cry, that would give away everyone in the hiding place. True? So I was a child. I was the youngest. But my family, my uncle and aunt always looked out for me. And I couldn't contact mom, although she would be brought in just for a daily visit with the other, the other workers in her camp. But she wasn't around more than maybe, I don't know, once in 10 days or once in a week, just for a few hours during the day. So I couldn't complain to mom, but my aunt and uncle were particularly kind and loving me. And yet my aunt bent down, hugged me, and she said, Celia, we love you so much, but you're such a good girl and you're so smart. Why don't you go hide? Here's a blanket. You take this blanket and go hide in the ruins. You see nearby there in the distance, there are some ruins of a bombed out house. You go there and cover yourself with the blanket. Probably it'll be over by tomorrow morning and we will be together again. Did I like what she said? No, but I needed to live. Therefore, I needed to cooperate and do everything that I was told to do. My aunt cried and kissed me, and I guess it must have been, I don't know, maybe, sundown of that day, or I don't know, probably that, like towards the evening. And I went there and I covered myself with the blanket and I fell asleep. But I did hear shots, meaning someone was caught and shot. And then I would hear the outcry of the victim. And then as I slept, I heard other things, but I thought I'm dreaming. And now I'm dreaming that there are footsteps marching. Well, marching, what am I dreaming? I wanted to be aware of what is in my mind. Is it a dream or is it real? But the footsteps come closer. And as they come closer, a voice rings out. And now the voice is calling my name. So now I'm awake and I realize that this is not a nightmare. And the voice I recognized was my aunt. And my aunt was saying, Celia, Celia, if you're here, because she wasn't sure where I was, if you're here, if you can hear me, we won't see you anymore. You are brave, you're alone, we love you. You can surmise and understand that the place where my aunt and my family were hiding and all the other people who were there with them were discovered by the Germans. All of them were now led to wherever. We never saw or heard from them again. They were gone, probably killed, and now I'm alone. I can't contact mom. Everyone is getting more just worn by what is going on around us. Family losing members, losing children, and there are infants, and there's lack of food. And now I'm alone, but I need to live. So, being a little girl, I always liked dolls. Your little girls like playing with dolls. Well, I had no toys and no dolls, but there were babies in the ghetto as well. And when these acts of just attacking and looking for hidden Jews to haul them away to whether it would be to work or to death, they left the babies behind. And I, not having anything else to do or anyone else to be with, started playing with these babies. They cried, the parents would leave behind a pacifier or a bottle or a little bowl with sugar water, and you dip in a piece of cotton gauze and put it on their lips. And when the Germans were going around looking for hidden Jews, if they didn't hear a baby cry, then they ignored the baby, and the baby lived. But the cry of a baby annoyed them. And what do you need babies for? They can't work, they need to be fed, they need attention, and they would take the butt of their gun and permanently silence the baby. But I prevented the baby at that time perhaps from crying. So when the parents returned, if they returned, means if they were successful in hiding, now they saw me and they wanted to reward me for saving their baby. And now they would share some food, some of their food rations with me. As time went on and my hair grew longer and covered with lice and all kinds of insects and just neglected to every possible way, they would cut my hair, the people whose babies I managed to keep alive. They'd cut my hair and pour cans of kerosene over me. That killed the lice, and Celia was able to go on and watch babies again. The time shortly came where Mom and the other members of the work camp, not the members, but the detainees of the camp where Mom worked, she came back for a daily visit with the others under German, watching them, and started asking around the people if they saw her brother and her daughter and the family, and they said, no, we haven't seen them, therefore they are probably dead. At the end of the day, Mom went back to her camp and unfortunately accepted the fact that her daughter, her brother, and the family were all gone. I continued, deteriorated, but somehow was still alive when the next time she returned, Mom did, and somehow she got word from someone saying, oh, there is this little girl that is watching babies. We don't know who she is, but maybe, and they gave her sort of a hint of where to look for me, and she found me. She found me and saw how sick and malnourished I was. And in the ghetto, they already had, the Jews had set up some doctors that were secretly treating patients. She brought me to the doctor. The doctor gave me medicine. And at the end of the day, Mom left. And she said, you take this medicine, continue doing what you've been doing so far. You're good, you're strong, and you will have a beautiful life. Just cooperate. I did. And again, for the next time, Mom returned and she said, Celia, I know I have heard this. We're not talking now a week or two. We're talking now quite a few months. And Mom said, Celia, I have decided that you cannot stay on here in the ghetto. You will not be this fortunate to escape death as many times as you have. So I am going to be looking for someone who will have you in their house and hide you and you're going to need to escape from the ghetto. So I had no idea what she was talking about, but I knew that I wanted to live. So again, mom is leaving. She told me not the details of where I'm going to be going, but just to meet her in the middle of the night. Once I get out of the ghetto, meet her in this wooded area nearby the ghetto, and she will take me to this family. I didn't reason, nor did I understand. I am just following orders because I want and I need to live. I took the blanket, covered myself up to cover my hair, and it was a moonlit night. Mom told me if I get out through the walls of the ghetto, then I should cover my nose because although I'm blonde and light skinned and blue eyed, that I have a long nose, and Jews are known to have long noses. So I might be recognized as being Jewish, and then even outside of the ghetto, someone will point me out and I will not live. I did as I'm told. I covered myself with the blanket, and it's in the middle of the night, and I peek out from underneath the walls of the ghetto, which were, I believe, wood, and I saw lights, and I saw soldiers with guns pointed, and I couldn't do it. I chickened out. Well, now I'm back to my old routine, except getting weaker and more famished. And whenever mom came back, as I said, I don't know the intervals, whether it was once a week, once in 10 days. But the next time she came back and she said, Celia, I have heard from the um, guards at the camp. Mom, as I said, was particularly charming and good looking. And the guards in the camp where she worked were probably Polish or Ukrainian, and they now worked for the Germans. So they had a common language. And they told mom, whose job was loading and unloading wagons of coal, that word has come out that the ghetto is going to be exterminated. When mom heard this and she came to me, she said, Celia, you didn't do it last time, but now if you don't do it tonight, then you will not have a chance at life again. So let's try the following. You know that blanket that I gave you? You take that blanket at the dusk of day when I and the other inmates that are just in for the day, when we leave through the gates of the ghetto, you mingle in between us, covered with the blanket. Maybe you'll be able to get through because you will not stand out. I thought it wouldn't happen, but I did follow what mom told me because I need to live. I didn't reason. I didn't think about it. I was emaciated. I was um, totally not thinking, just functioning like a robot. I followed directions and I made it through the gates of the ghetto. Now they went on. I sort of removed myself as mom instructed in that wooded area. And now I'm thinking, okay, I'm out of the ghetto, but now are there going to be wolves or bears that are going to come at me? But it was a moonlit night. Mom told me later that it must have been in March. And so the moon was out, and I looked at this wooded area, and from the distance, I recognized that it was a park that my dad used to bring me to on Sundays to be on the merry-go-round and to play games in the grass and picnics. So I waited, now a little bit calmer. I didn't sit on a bench, I hid under the bench, and maybe I dozed off. But in the middle of the night, Mom appeared. She found me in that designated area where she told me to wait. I do not remember, but by what means she brought me to the suburbs of town, which she told me was a family who were clients of my father pre-war, meaning my dad was a sheet metal worker, but he was very artistic and he would make little figurines out of metal. And this couple who agreed to save me would come sometimes on Sundays, and I would, or midweek, I don't remember those details, but they would see me in the shop. And sometimes towards the end, I was modeling my little dress that I was going to wear for the ballet recital, and they admired it. When Mom heard from the guards that the ghetto is going to be exterminated, they let Mom escape and go to this family and ask them, do you remember that little girl, my little daughter that used to sit in the shop? And she gave them the name and address. I know you liked her, you played with her. Well, now she cannot stay in the ghetto anymore because she's alone, and the ghetto and my child will not continue to live. So if I bring her to you, would you want her as your daughter? They had no children. I didn't know any of these details. All I wanted to do was live. Mom brought me out from the ghetto in order to bring me to this family. So now she came in the middle of the night, found me in that park. I do not remember the means of transportation of how we got to the suburbs of town. When we got there, we hugged goodbye, Mom and I. We both knew that we will probably never see each other again. But I was either too young or too sick or totally unable to reason. My only goal was to live. So, as I said, we hugged, Mom left, and here stands a door on the main level of the house, and there is a woman and a gentleman behind her, and two older people, probably a mom or a grandma and grandfather. And the woman at the front embraces me and brings me into the house, and we have a sit down, speaking in whispers. This was all at the, yes, at the crack of dawn because it was still dark outside. And we had a sit down after they fed me and cleaned me up and started explaining the following to me. You are staying in our house so that you can live. We will do everything to help you. However, you need to follow these directions. You are never to wear shoes in the house. You are never to go near a window. In the basement here, they opened a closet, and in the floor of the closet in the basement, they set up a bed, meaning on the floor, that whether it was a mattress or a blanket, I do not remember. So when the doorbell rings, with your stocking feet, you are to go into this room in the basement, go into your closet, and not come out until we come and physically take you out. You are never to go near a window. The curtains are sheer, but they're closed. You can never open them. I came to them with all kinds of skin diseases, and because they slowly taught me how to eat normal food, how to speak, very, low, but slowly I healed. They caught my diseases. They went to the doctor and were already suspicious. Were you near Jews? Because this skin diseases that they caught, whatever it was, scurvy or whatever, people outside of the ghetto didn't have it. It was only due to the poor sanitary conditions. But they risked that to save their own skin and to help me. They cured me, and with time, things relaxed, and I became, um, we started calling them mommy and daddy, and I had a grandma and a grandpa, and they started cuddling me and playing with me, and my grandmother started teaching me the Polish prayers, and my father, my Polish father, who was a professor, I would warm his slippers at night. He would hold me in his lap and read me a book. And slowly I started observing their religion. My grandma told me to kneel and cross myself, and I put my past away. I now have a mom and dad and a family, and this was the grandparents' home. They had a barn in the back, and in the back, just for their own use, there were a cow and a goat and some chickens for eggs. And each day, a different member of the family went down to milk the cow and bring up the eggs. And they let me, when they brought it up, they let me touch the warm eggs and drink the milk, and told me as soon as the war is over, I'll be able to go down and see it and witness it. Well, why would I want to remember my life until then? Here I am. I have loving parents and grandparents, and they love me and they take care of me. When I heard children playing outside, don't worry, soon it'll be over and you will be playing with them. And I loved them, they loved me, and I couldn't wait for the day that Grandma promised I would go to church and be formally christened or baptized and be their daughter and be Polish. I put my past away. Why would I want to remember my past? I'm their daughter and I'm enjoying life. Excuse me. Yes, I'm very anxious to play with the children whose voices I hear outside, and they promise me that soon I'll be able to join them. This soon turned out to be probably more than a year. And as I said, no shoes in the house, always stocking feet. My bed is in the basement. One day, I came upstairs to their level in my stocking feet. And for the first time, through the big picture window, I saw the curtains open and the 4 members of my family, my parents and grandparents, looking out the window. What I saw, I couldn't quite figure out in my mind, but my grandmother heard my shuffling in, and she ran quickly to cover my eyes, but not quickly enough, because what I saw and what my family was, like staring at, were outside their picture window, the house directly across from them, 2 adults and 2 children publicly hung out the wall of the outside of the building. My family wanted to prevent me from seeing that, but I did. They closed the curtains. We sat down and had a talk. So they explained to me that probably the family and those children were punished because they were saving 2 Jewish children. I don't know whether it was a brother and sister or just a boy and a girl, but they were found, and the punishment for saving Jewish kids was death. Now, my family, as I said, sat down, and my father, my Polish father, explained that he has to research some other ways for me to live, but not with them. Because now that this happened in the neighborhood, they would probably be searching each house more diligently. And a few days later, he came back, and again we sat down, and he said the best that he could come up with is that there was a boat that would leave from an orphanage, rather, that would have a boat, and on this boat, they would permit Jewish orphans, Jewish kids, to be going on that boat to what was then Palestine. Remember, there was no Israel. But all the children that were in the orphanage who were Jewish could no longer stay, and to save them and to give them the opportunity to live, they would go on their boat. And unfortunately, as much as they loved me, in order to save my life and theirs, I was to go onto that boat. Yes, I cried, and so did all the members of my family. But I need to live, and the morning arrives where my Polish sweet mother is walking out with me by after saying goodbyes, and everyone is crying. But we walk out through the back of the house, and I'm assuming that for the final time, because I'm no longer going to be with them, took me through the back of the house that I could see the barn, and I could see the animals, the cows that I was so anxious to milk, and the eggs. And so I followed along, all in very quiet, and we get down to the barn, and my mom, my Polish sweet mom, whom I now called mom, sits me down on the steps and whispers to me quietly, Celia, I love you so much, and I am so afraid that you may not make it to your final destination in Palestine, and that you will still be alive. But I know what a good girl you are. So, how would you feel if I hid you here in this barn? Remember, we always talked about the barn and the animals. So, How would you feel if I hid you here? You won't go on the boat. But remember, if I hide you in the barn, your father and your grandparents upstairs cannot know about it. So I can only bring food once every third day when it is my turn to feed the animals. There were four members to my family, but my grandfather was by that time not strong and we couldn't count on him. And my Polish mom would substitute her dad. So usually she would bring food once in 3 days, but we're talking food for the animals, right? So, oh, and by the way, Celia, you're not going to be alone. What do you mean I'm not going to be alone? This is a barn. I'm going to be with the animals, right? No, you're going to have a friend. How? I'm going to have a friend? You mean I'm going to have a little girl that I'm going to be playing with? Anything. Wait, I don't know what a boat is. I have no idea. Of course, I agreed. And she took the pitchfork, separated the hay as much as she could, and all the way up, like close to the ceiling, I'm expecting a friend, a little girl. And there appears this skeletal, unkept woman who is whispering names of endearment that sort of strike a bell, but I am not accepting them. I'm looking for a friend. Who is this woman? But she keeps on trying, all in whispers, because nobody else knows that this what's going on in the basement, in the barn. In the barn there are animals, and animals don't talk. So what are the people upstairs going to think? And I don't want to, she is speaking to me, and I don't know her, and I don't want to know her. And she's trying in whispers and barely able to speak because she's so drained and weak. And finally, she attempts, like, her final effort. Celia, don't you remember the ballet recital? Don't you remember what happened to your life at that point? So, can the students or the audience, can you possibly think of who this friend was? I'll give you a moment and you can guess of who it was. But now, I guess because of time issue, my mom befriended the guards in the workplace, in the work camp where she worked, and they liked her. And now word came around that her camp, where she worked, that too was going to be stopped. The camp will be closed down, and all the people who are there will be killed. So, if you have, mom's name was Sonia, and they said, Sonia, we are letting you know that if you have anywhere to run to save your life, you need to do it tomorrow, the latest. After that, they will destroy the camp. Mom loaded the wagon of coal, which was her job. When she did that, she put herself in between the tracks of the train. When the train pulled over her, she escaped. Having nowhere else to go, she came to the same woman who, about a year or so ago, or a year and a half, I do not know the length of time, but she came to the same woman to whom she had brought me before and said to her, you are such a God-fearing, beautiful human being. I'm not coming here to claim my child back or to put you or your family in danger, but could you just let me be, or let me know where I can just stay by myself and die of natural causes, not to be dismembered or killed or tortured or raped. And this woman, my mom, assumed that she would put her someplace in a field. But this beautiful woman hid my mom in the barn for about maybe 9 months or so while I was upstairs with them thriving. So mom was alone in the barn. She only got food when it was my Polish mom's day to feed the animals. The only food she can bring mom was food that looked exactly like the pails of food for the animals. One would be water, one would be with food soaking on top, and one empty. She brought this to mom every third day. And now, this beautiful mom that I remembered was no longer the person that I even wanted to remember. But time was of essence. She couldn't bring me out of the house to take me to the orphanage, and she didn't want to bring me to the orphanage. She felt my life would be too, too risky, that I wouldn't make it to to Palestine. So now I am joined, and this friend is my mom. We are sitting in this grave-sized area in the barn, and mom starts building up my life up to that point. I am younger, I am stronger. I sneak down at night to get some of the extra food that is standing around for the animals. And as much as I can, I bring it up to us so that we would have extra food. One of us is able to make a noise so the other one can sleep, so the rats wouldn't come at us, because at night the rats would come around looking for extra food. Human beings are pretty good food. One of us was able to sleep while the other made that noise. One of us was able to push the other out of the way when the Germans came with pitchforks looking for hidden Jews, and they were coming around often. I now put my life together of what was and how it came about. And my goal was to show mom how strong I am. And she came every third day, brought us up to the news of what's going on in the war. One night, we heard a big thud, and we thought maybe the house was bombed. And indeed, it was a grenade that hit part of the house, but not the area of the house where her family slept. Therefore, God was rewarding them, she said, for hiding two Jewish people, innocent people, as mom and I were. And that's why she is continuing to save us, because her goal is to save people. We stayed there together, mom and I. She built back my life up to that point. I am now older and understand more. And finally, she comes to the day and tells me that the Russians have invaded, and where now the war is over and we can no longer stay with her. We had to be very, very quiet, and mom could barely step down after all that time when she wasn't fed. And when when we were speaking of leaving, I had no idea where we were going, nor do I know how we got there, but it would be back to the house that was ours pre-war. But mom, who could barely stand up, my biological mom, said, Celia, you hid, you were good, I am your mother, but if I don't live, you have a loving mother and family who would give you an opportunity to live. Remember that. We did make it, however. I don't remember how. We went back to the house that was ours pre-war. It was now a set up camp for the Russians, and the Russian soldiers started bringing us back to help us how to speak in normal tones, how to chew and eat regular food. And slowly we came back to a little bit of functioning. And the super of the house, that was still the same super who had worked for the house before the war, he got a letter from someone addressed to my mom's name. He showed mom the letter. She read it, and she said she recognized the handwriting, but not the name. What ultimately that letter was, which I knew nothing about because I had never gone to school. I couldn't read or write. And I'm now almost 10 years old. Well, the letter, mom recognized the handwriting, was from someone who escaped the Russian army, went on to different parts of Russia. The war is over, and he is now looking for his wife, Sonia, and his daughter, Sila, which is my Polish name. Celia is English. He was looking for us. Now we were nursed back to somewhat normal health by the Russian soldiers who now had camp in the backyard where I used to play with my friends. And now, one day, after I'm somewhat back to being a normal 10-year-old, mom brings me to a place, maybe it was the airport or wherever it was, that my dad was coming off the plane or train to be reunited. He opens his arms to embrace me, and I'm saying, "You're my father. How could you be my father? I haven't seen you. You haven't been in touch." And he tried and cried and opened his arms, but I would not submit to this until he pulled out a photograph. This photograph, can you see it? That was the day that I was to perform in that ballet recital. My father had the original photo with him the 5 or so years that we were apart. So this photograph now reconnected me with my dad, and we were reunited. Slowly, they started telling me the details of what happened. Now I'm older. We went on to different German displaced persons camps, helped by the United States, obviously. They set up makeshift schools. And in those camps, I was taught a little bit of English, a little bit of history, and told about, the war. But here we are, and um, with the help of the United States, they found an uncle, a brother of my mom, who immigrated to America pre-war. He married an American girl, or maybe a girl that came on to the United States. She looked to marry someone. She came back for a visit, married my uncle, and now my uncle, living in New York, sponsored us. And now we came to Boston Harbor as his sponsors. And now my uncle takes me aboard on top of the ship and speaks to me in English, which I now understood a little, because in the DP camp, in the schools, they taught me a little English, and my parents My father was the sheet metal worker, now became a teacher in a class that at the camp they set up as an art school, you know, the school where they teach young men professions, ORT. My father was the instructor. And so when we came to these United States, I spoke a little English because the German who came to my house taught me. And my uncle says, Celia, you are in a new place. We're now going to be going by train from Boston to New York, where I live and you will be going to a school, and you will be with other children your age, and now your language is going to be English. So, with all these promises, I'm saying to my uncle, Uncle Harry, with everything you're promising, can't this be my birthday? Can't I put everything away? My life is starting today, August 27, 1949. We ultimately came to to New York from Boston by train. Dad went to work for my uncle, who was in the same line of work as my dad. Mom got some, I don't know what her job was, maybe cleaning houses. And I was enrolled in school. And with the little bit of English and with how much I wanted to be liked and accepted and be an American, I became a good student. And at first, my marks were bad, but they improved. And I am now 14 years old, and life is going on. We have a small little railroad apartment on the Lower East Side in Manhattan, and you can hear everything. Excuse me, but you know, the bathroom, the kitchen, the bedroom, all were just one long room. I'm sleeping on a couch and I hear mom crying and dad saying, no, 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 we can't keep it. It appears that I am now about 14 and a half years old, and mom um, is gaining weight, and well, food is now available, and we're finally in a free country. So we couldn't afford a doctor. Mom went to a clinic, and the clinic said to her that you are pregnant. And mom said, oh my goodness, I have a daughter of 14 and a half, and I'm working. She came home, shared that news with dad, and dad said, no, no, we can't keep the baby. We're going to give the baby to someone who at least can keep this baby, boy or girl, until that baby sleeps through the night so that we can all, Celia should be able to go to school and you and I have to work. But I took care of babies whose parents never came back. And I heard that conversation and my mom's crying. No, you cannot give the baby away. Mom gave birth to a baby boy 1 month short of my 15th birthday. Because I was a good student and became teacher's pet, I never had too many friends, and now I couldn't pursue or develop these friendships because any time I had off, I was watching the baby. Now, the baby is growing up, and my mom didn't go back to work because she went into severe postpartum depression. Slowly, that baby becomes the apple of my father's eye. I got married. I wanted to go on to college. I had the marks and the scholarships. And dad said, no, you have had all these experiences. You are not, there's no need for you to go to college. Of course, I wasn't happy about that. But in order to live, I need to obey. I didn't I didn't do anything not to be obedient and accepted. I was married to a young man whom my parents knew from the displaced persons camp. He came to America later than I, maybe 51. He and his brother went into retail grocery business, and he was a good guy to marry because, after all, I'll have food. I won't be starving again. So I was married when my brother was 4 years old. I moved to Brooklyn. My parents lived in the Bronx, and my brother traveled by subway to come to be with my own family because he had now kids, and I was leading more of the American lifestyle where my parents still had the fears and the, not allowing my brother to have all the advantages of being a free child in America. I never wanted to talk about my past. I was born the day I arrived, right, in Boston. So now I had children, time passed, and my oldest and youngest child are 10 years apart. My youngest daughter was in Barnard. This was the late 90s, and they were starting to build the Museum of Jewish Heritage. And my daughter, the youngest daughter, who knew less about my experiences than her older siblings, because my older children, my mom was alive and she told them all. She was younger, and so at that point, mom spoke less, but my daughter knew of my, war experiences. She slowly coerced me to go and speak at the museum to students who never knew about the Holocaust, who never heard stories, or maybe some, but it was now time to share it. So this is how I began talking to students. And I was amazed at how many truly didn't know about what was going on. But slowly, as I continued doing this, they became more my kids than my students. They stayed in touch. They continued doing internships and learn, not all, but surely enough to make a difference. And those are the students that I go for the winter months, I go to Florida, where I am now, regretfully, due to the current, COVID-19, I can't get back to New York. But while here in Florida, I go with students on something called the March of the Living, where I travel with them to Poland and visit all the concentration camps that even I hadn't seen before. But these kids are now my adopted grandchildren. I hear from them, not all, but surely enough. They visit during this difficult time of the COVID-19. They come and deliver food. No, don't come to the house. One of them is a filmmaker and is making a film of this, which will, in the very near future, be finished and done. And I feel that being in touch with students and know it is not a story of, the unfortunate things that happen to people in the concentration camps where there were ovens and murders, but it's another part of human beings, of how many people care to save other lives, to help others, even at the risk. And this is what I share with the students, and they will be the future of helping others in these difficult times where we live. So, as I started my story saying, I'm walking in the streets and people are avoiding me. But that's what happened when I was an outcast. I'm Jewish and they don't want to be near me. Now they're avoiding me because maybe I have the coronavirus. Now I'm alone, as I was alone for all that time because of what is going on and people are not being together. So I'm not comparing it, but it's been very difficult because I am alone and all these come back. This family risked their life by their generosity. And now those that are avoiding me are protecting themselves and me. But I cannot help these thoughts when you're alone. But hopefully it will be behind us. And I hope that maybe some of you will come to visit the museum if you have yet not been there. And maybe we can work it out that I'll be there and meet with you. And I know I've kept you too long. If you have questions, please feel free. And thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Celia. This is Dan
Of course.
Rendish. Thank you so much. We have had a few questions from students, and we're going to start choosing which questions we'll ask. It looks like something might have just frozen. In the meantime, if you can hear me and we can keep going, I thought something that the students would find interesting is that you had a Scarsdale connection and that you'd spoken at Scarsdale schools earlier. But let's see if we're having technical issues.
Yeah, Dan, it does look like she's having a technical issue. Let's give her a minute to see if she hops off and hops back on. Looks like Celia may be.
I'm on now.
Wonderful. You're back. Perfect.
Yes, I'm perfect. It stopped just when I stopped speaking because it
Exactly.
went out. But
Exactly.
now I
Well,
got the hang of it, so I'm back.
thank you. Wonderful.
Celia, this is Dan Rendish. I was just saying that I think our students would be interested to hear just very quickly about you have a Scarsdale connection. Is that true?
Yes, my daughter lives in Scarsdale, yes.
That's
And
super.
my 3 grandsons, well, one is still there. He's 14, actually. He'll be in high school next year. Okay, so, and they live very close. It's like a few minutes away from the Edgemont school.
That is interesting. It looks like Mrs. Egan is coming back to the meeting too. I found a couple of questions that students had been writing as you were speaking. And let me just go back and look. One of them, and you actually just you started to talk about it toward the end there, was about how your experiences have compare with the pandemic and being alone again or being alone.
Yes.
So that was one question that I had, or that one student had. Let me see if there's. You've answered many of the questions already, which is great.
No, it's if I may interrupt for a moment, Dan. I live in a house, and obviously, there is no interaction with people. No one comes in, right? So they were painting the house, and they boarded up the glass windows, so that the paint wouldn't get onto, right? So there was, I couldn't see outside. So when you're alone, and you don't have any, view of sun, sky, dark, nothing. At night, I'm sleeping, and is it a nightmare or is it happening? It's like I'm back in that barn, in that great sized area where I need to stay awake because something is coming at me. Or being in the street, people are avoiding me because I might have the virus, right? If they come close, now they're pointing, like pointing, and I'm thinking, why? Because I'm Jewish? No, I'm not wearing a mask. You know what I'm saying? It's not a comparison, but to someone like me, where I thought I had it all, I'm fine. But under these difficult circumstances, it does come back. So hopefully this too will pass, and maybe we'll go back to a normal world, or a better one even.
Let's hope so. I'm looking through the questions the students have written, and many of them have just written a comment about how grateful they are to have heard you today, too. So I just wanted to share that.
So maybe one day you'll invite me. I'll come there in person.
That would be super.
I don't hear you.
No, I was just
Okay.
looking for some more questions. It's
Okay.
looking like it's.
Okay. May I ask? Obviously I don't understand technology, but how is it that I cannot see the students at all?
Well,
They
we
can
had.
see me. They can
Yeah,
see me.
they
They
can
can
see
only
you.
hear me, but they cannot see me, or they can.
They can see you and they can hear you. We had almost 150 people watching at one point, and that's at home, so there might have been families watching together.
Okay.
And that was too many people to have on a screen, in a meeting at one time. So we had a smaller meeting, and we were able to display it to the students.
Oh, I got it. Okay. Well, as I said, this is different, that everyone is working from home. I forgot that. I apologize. Different world.
It is a world, and no apologies necessary. But the other nice thing, Celia, is that this is being recorded, so that as we ask for your permission, so any students or families who weren't able to watch it now will be able to watch it later. So we can let so many other people be able to hear the
Absolutely.
story.
Absolutely. And if any of them, want to, speak with me, or, or call me, or whatever, that is totally fine. All of kids need to know and understand that under the most difficult circumstances, there are still good people who are looking to help to make this a world equally good for all.
Yes.
Right. Go ahead. You were saying.
One of the phrases that we used in school is the importance of being an upstander rather than a bystander. And I think your story highlights that so well.
Definitely so.
I'm so happy, in in your story saying that you had to put your past away and put your past away. And I know that we're very grateful that you ended up, that your
Well,
daughter ended
I
up
do it
coercing you.
because I do it with students because in the world we live in now, even aside from this COVID-19, there are so many young people that don't know enough about this. And by understanding and knowing, it's their job to prevent such an occurrence again. If you don't know it, how can you help? So yes, and time is, there won't be many witnesses around much longer unless they come up with, extended life, but that's not the story. So now, because, every year there are fewer and fewer witnesses alive. So,
Are there any other teachers that would like to mention a question or thank Celia for her time?
Yes, Celia. I'm having some technical difficulties of my own, but this is Christine that you saw earlier on the camera.
yes, I know.
It was just so it was amazing hearing your story and all the positive things that happened through all the difficulties. And it's just thank you so much for your patience and your willingness to work through all the technical difficulties that
Oh,
we
yes. Oh, yes.
that we put
Yes.
you through the last few days. You have
Oh,
been
yes.
such a trooper.
As a matter of fact, one of my granddaughters, I have two married granddaughters and they have three children each. And one of my grandsons, the youngest one, he got me onto Zoom. And this youngest granddaughter is getting married Sunday. I can't be in New York with them, but I'm going to be Zooming and I'll see the wedding. And, you know, I'll be there in spirit and I'll see them all on, on
Yeah.
Zoom. I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
So,
that's fabulous. That's the beauty of
indeed, yes.
technology. For all the headaches.
Right. But I'm not having an easy time with this. So I thought that I needed, a password or something for this, but I never heard of this Coleridge. But here I am. I thought that I needed, for Zoom that I needed, but I never heard of Coleridge. But I will find out. I'll follow through. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. We greatly
Of
appreciate
course.
it. And
Of
Miss
course.
Egan, who's having some issues on her end, technically also wants us to extend her thank you to you as well.
Okay.
And
Of
just
course.
God bless you and be well and stay safe. And again, we thank you so much for your time and for your
Of
story and
course.
for sharing it.
Thank you
And
for bringing the students to their attention and their knowing about individual, experiences that people can still alive and share with the students. It's history. It's our history. It's their history. We can't make the
absolutely.
world better if we don't learn from past. So
Yes.
maybe someday we will meet, and that would be my privilege. Thank you.
I'm
That would
looking
be
forward.
Okay.
yes.
If I
Thank
could
you.
just jump in again for a second, this is
Okay.
Alec Clark again, Celia. Again, thank you so much. This is so important. As you said, you know, you can't if you can't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat the history. But the thing
Correct.
that's so important is that it's one thing to have things written down in a book and to read them, but that is not the same as to, again, see your face, hear your voice, and
Indeed.
hear it from your personal perspective. That makes such a difference versus just some facts that you
Think
learned
so.
in the book.
Right. Well, I've been doing this, for all these years, and frankly, I was approached numerous times. Do I want to write a book? And I feel that, you know, unfortunately, that we can't be, together now. But if, once this is over and a student physically meets and has an experience of speaking with a survivor, that leaves them with way much more emotion and feeling and remembrance than a book that you've read. There are many books, whether they're going to be, histories or novels, but I think a personal experience. So, as I said, if I've evoked any kind of interest, and when COVID is over, come to the museum. It doesn't need to be with a school group. You can come down, it's great. There is now a great exhibit there of Auschwitz, where, what people did to people. These young, bright students need to learn this history and take advantage of it while there are still witnesses around. So I hope my talk, initiated some interest and that they will do it. Okay.
It sure did.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Celia.
Okay. Are we done? Have a good afternoon, all, and we'll talk again. Thank you, Dan.
Thank
and
you so
all
much.
of you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Take care. All right. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Alex.
But it will be available on the YouTube channel. I know the teachers will be sending out information on how everyone can get to it. So for anyone who wasn't able to participate today, you'll be able to share that information with anyone who wants to be able to watch this. So thank you all.
Great. Thanks for all your help. Appreciate
thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. Okay.
You've been a
All right.
All right.
Have a wonderful day. Take care.
Thanks.